that had a more of a whistle, long-term whistle. Good details where it's all at.
Is it a bear?
No, it's not a bear. It's not even moving like a bear. It looks like it's trying to close in on him. It's hunting.
Mireya Mayor has dedicated her professional life to studying the wild. However, nothing could have prepared her for the encounter she had with Bigfoot deep in the forest. What's even more startling, according to Mireya, the government intervened to put an end to it. They don't want the world to know what makes this creature so terrifying. Make sure to watch until the end. What did Mireya discover that was so frightening that the government felt the need to hide it from the entire world, so no one would ever know? Was it a Bigfoot, or an ancient creature that had been hiding in the forest for thousands, or even millions of years? In the deep, dark woods, Bryce and Mireya had sensed something warm on a tree just minutes before, a faint indication that a huge monster had just gone by. Drawn by the mystery, they continued their journey into an abandoned logging site, a land of secrets and quiet, where the air seemed heavy with untold tales. They were driven to discover what was concealed in the shadowed depths by the icy, mysterious atmosphere, which led them to both exciting and disturbing findings. They were stopped in their tracks when they noticed a figure in the distance. Authorities have long attempted to keep quiet about Mayor's bombshell announcement, which was made not long ago. These days, Bryce and his company were lost in a chilly, barren wilderness. They discovered a tree there, still warm to the touch, as though a huge beast had just gone by in this unsettling seclusion. They were frozen in place as a loud, booming cry echoed through the forest as Bryce touched the tree once more. It dawned on them that they weren't alone. Out there, something was approaching. They approached a long-forgotten logging site that had been concealed for years. Mireya felt a strong tug toward whatever truth was hidden because of the forest's peculiar past. They became aware that someone or something was approaching them, and they were not alone. They proceeded through the woods in silence, a mounting uneasiness settling upon the party.
They have something called the skunk ape, and there's been a lot of sightings over many years of what they describe as a Bigfoot type of creature.
The team persisted in their quest to learn the truth. Mireya, particularly interested in the unique past of the region. The sight of 3 trees grouped in a perfect triangle at the foot of a far-off mountain kept catching their attention as they went. Though its significance was still unknown, it seemed as though the forest itself was attempting to communicate with them. Their curiosity kept them going even though they were aware of the risks. They overcame new challenges every day while carefully documenting everything they came across. While they still had concerns, the chance of discovering something big powered them on. But the hardest part was still to come. The forest itself seemed to be alive, going against their attempts to locate what they were looking for. The importance of their quest for answers surpassed that of the strange monster they were pursuing. They discovered 2 sizable nests tucked away among the tall fir trees in Northern California. Something about the odd hair near the nests didn't sit right, so they initially thought it belonged to wolves. They were drawn in by this strange finding, but it wasn't the proof they were looking for. After that, they talked to a local who related spooky stories about forest workers who heard disturbing cries in the woods and fled in fear. Their journey was made even more terrifying by the terrifying tale, but they persisted because they knew the greatest mystery was still to come. Prince of Wales Island in Alaska, a huge, wild wilderness known for Bigfoot sightings, was the destination of their hunt. The team's expectations were maintained by the numerous strange reports that came from this distant area, which covered more than 60,000 acres. Native American mythology depicted supernaturally endowed beings who were significantly more dangerous than typical fauna. They felt the weight of these tales with every step they took through the countryside.
Bigfoot is, by definition, big. Some say they grow to be 800 pounds. Could they really climb a tree and hang up there without breaking those branches?
Particularly when they came across untamed animals. The team's most promising lead was an alpine lake that sits close to Gray Mountain and is thought to be a secret Bigfoot sanctuary. Only by following challenging, lonely trails, far from civilization, could one reach this distant lake. Determined to find the truth, Ronnie and Mireya bravely continued in spite of the danger. The sense of mystery and danger increased as they moved more into the wilderness. They knew they were approaching something remarkable, so they were unfazed by the difficult terrain and the bitter cold. Returning to their makeshift camp, Bryce and Ronnie adopted a more careful strategy, employing a drone to survey safer regions from above. To identify gas leaks and strange odors linked to Bigfoot sightings, the drone was carefully modified. Among these were unpleasant smells, frequently mentioned in purported encounters, such as trash, rotten meat, wet dog, and skunk. The team planned to collect useful information that could help them navigate by using the drone to fly over regions they couldn't safely access on foot. Another team member, Russell, wandered near the base and saw something interesting. A river that ran east toward the sea. The river might provide information about the local species and topography, which could help animals, or even Bigfoot, travel secretly, even though it has nothing to do with Bigfoot. The team used the drone as an aerial guide as they made their way through dense areas covered in devil's club plants, which are known for their sharp thorns. The crew continued to advance, getting closer to the monster they were looking for, thanks to a combination of modern technology and traditional exploring methods. They understood that, in spite of the difficulties, they couldn't go back now, and each step led them farther into the mystery. The excitement of exploration was simply too intense. The team knew that every piece of evidence, whether it was an unusual hair beside a huge nest or haunting cries echoing through the night,
some meat and run away with it. Wouldn't that make sense, then, that the Sasquatches would utilize the same strategies as human ancestors did?
could signify the discovery of something spectacular, even though some might reject their voyage as pointless. These findings weren't made at random. They could be proof of an undiscovered species that hasn't been identified yet. Despite obstacles like broken equipment or misleading leads, the team persisted. Their goal was to bridge the gap between the known and the unknown by seeking concrete evidence that something unusual existed, not to chase myths or legends. Mireya was busy examining data gathered from the drone as Russell examined what appeared to be animal skin dangling from a tree branch. In order to map out areas of interest, the drone had been taking pictures and picking up odd signals from the forest. But this was just the start of their difficulties. The area they were traveling through was harsh. Every step was risky due to the harsh weather, winds, icy terrain, and the ongoing threat of predators like bears and other wild creatures. Armed guards accompanied the crew, highlighting how dangerous their voyage had become. They started to see strange and unnerving images as they continued to explore the forest. Through the thick undergrowth, strange shapes that resembled Yeti-like animals were observed moving. Every finding pointed to something more significant, something concealed in the wide wilderness. This was a carefully thought-out trip, not a hike. They had arrived with state-of-the-art equipment and an intense will to find out what was going on. They got closer to the secrets hidden in the forest with each new tool, piece of information, and advancement. They were motivated by the possibility of making a groundbreaking discovery, which kept them focused in spite of the enormous risks. Now capable of detecting gases, the drone guided them past areas of Devil's Club plants, which are known for their sharp thorns. For this team, every clue, whether it was a peculiar tuft of hair near a huge nest or spooky cries ringing through the night, hinted to something more than what some may consider to be the pointlessness of their search.
But what about the knocks? Barrickman thinks that could be something like a Sasquatch Morse code.
They were searching for an unidentified species, possibly one that had escaped recording rather than just following legend. They persisted in the belief that these findings could close the gap between the known and the unknown, even in the face of obstacles like equipment failures and following false leads. Although they experienced irritation along the way, they realized that each step they took would get them closer to the truth. Although the weather continued to be harsh, that wasn't their main challenge. Russell and Mireya looked out over the wide, snow-covered landscape as they traveled through the freezing wilderness, their breath audible in the chilly air. They had traveled through dangerous forests, over rocky hillsides, into hidden valleys, and throughout Northern California and Alaska in quest of Bigfoot, a creature that always was able to escape them. Russell's sharp sense of direction allowed him to closely monitor their surroundings, and Mireya's determination allowed her to examine the dark forest for any indication of movement. They decided it was time to locate a safe place to spend the night as darkness started to set in. Their original plan did not include camping in the center of what was thought to be Bigfoot's area, but they were left with no other option. As the last light diminished, the forest that had seemed intriguing and adventurous throughout the day began to feel strange and slightly menacing. It started feeling the same every day. Get up, look, find nothing, go to sleep, and repeat. Exhaustion, both mental and physical, was taking the place of the excitement of the quest. The group was beginning to see that its lofty goals were not matching the actual circumstances. Still, holding on to the slim chance that they may find something significant, they continued, determined to disprove the skeptics. Every unexpected finding, such as a hair stuck in a bush, prompted long discussions, although these talks rarely resulted in conclusive evidence. The difficulty of surviving in the forest was becoming more important to them than finding Bigfoot. The harshness of the woods and the growing skepticism over Bigfoot's existence seemed to eclipse the odds of making a groundbreaking find every day. Their purpose was quietly changing. The event itself became the primary emphasis, rather than just the search for Bigfoot. The real treasures were the journey through the wilderness, the in-depth discussions sparked by every new discovery, and the tales they would eventually tell. Every day it seemed less important whether they discovered Bigfoot or not. Determined not to let the bitter weather stop them, Mireya and Russell struggled over the snowy terrain. They discovered a tiny clearing surrounded by dense trees as they continued their journey into the forest. Although the campsite wasn't ideal, the trees provided some protection from the chilly wind, which allowed for a small break from the unforgiving surroundings. They stayed alert all night, listening for any indications of the thing they were looking for. But all they could hear were the forest's well-known noises, like the rustle of leaves and the distant owl's hoot. Unfazed by everything, they packed up and continued their journey when daylight arrived. Small clues, like a broken limb or a set of tracks, occasionally gave optimism. Every minor finding fueled their progress and pulled them more into the wilderness. The weight of their trip increased with each step they took into the unknown. Leading the way was Mireya. She was a fearless adventurer who is frequently compared to Indiana Jones. She gained fame in the scientific community for her groundbreaking discovery of the tiniest primate in the world, which was made in Madagascar. She was now being drawn into the center of old tales by fresh hints. She was motivated by her love of creating a connection between humans and nature, especially via her work with endangered animals like lemurs and gorillas.
And one of the ones that really struck me involved gorillas and how caring they are for each other.
But this journey was not like the others. It was about dispelling one of the oldest myths, the hunt for Bigfoot, rather than merely rescuing animals. Every hint that had previously excited them now made them uneasy. However, they persisted in spite of the risks, their resolve unshakable. They became more aware of the dangers as they continued to explore the forest, but their curiosity, dread, and desire to learn the truth kept them going. The group moved carefully into the woodland, listening to every sound and shadow. The trees' stress was increased by the spooky noises and deepening shadows, which made them feel alive and watching. They were reminded of how far they had come by every new discovery. Unsettling clues started to emerge as they made their way more into the forest. Patches of fur here, a stray animal bone there. There was a strange feeling. When they came upon a clearing and were overcome by an offensive, overpowering stink, their uneasiness increased. They discovered the remnants of an animal that had been brutally ripped apart, which was nothing short of unsettling. Big bones were broken, as though by a very powerful force. The squad soon came to the realization that they were up against something dreadful and frightening, not just any beast. However, the worst was still to come. A sudden snowstorm rapidly covered the remains with a new blanket of snow, as they struggled to comprehend the gory image. The team couldn't get the vision of what was behind the snow out of their minds, even if it seemed like the storm had erased the tragedy. The forest's strange stillness returned after the storm, but it felt like a fake one. The excitement of discovery had gradually given way to worry. Once thrilling, every new hint now made the crew uneasy. Nevertheless, they persisted in spite of their fears, their resolve only growing stronger in the face of uncertainty. What had begun as a search for Bigfoot was now evolving into something much more sinister. As they continued their exploration, they came to understand that they were up against something unfamiliar and maybe hazardous rather than merely pursuing a fiction. With their bodies hurting from the lengthy hike and the difficult weather, the team was already worn out. Suddenly, they noticed a dark shape flashing quickly between the woods. Is Bigfoot the culprit? They were held captive by a mixture of thrill and anxiety as their hearts thumped in their chests. They gazed into the dense woodland, hoping for a better view, and every muscle stiffened. However, the shadow disappeared before anyone could respond, leaving only new footprints in the snow. Despite being brief, the impact was profound. A terrible reminder of what they had just missed. Those footsteps stood out against the fresh snow. Despite being brief, the encounter gave the group a rush of excitement. Even as their energy level dropped, it renewed their resolve. Despite their growing weariness, the team was more inspired than ever to continue looking after this near miss. They knew they were getting closer than ever to discovering the truth, whatever it was, as the riddle grew more complex. The following day presented further difficulties. The weight of the quest started to wear on them as they hiked along ancient pathways that many others had tried but failed to follow, and the immense wilderness felt intimidating. All the sounds in the silent woods were heightened by the bone-chilling cold of nightfall. Their hearts raced at every sound of leaves rustling or branches snapping, giving them the uncanny feeling that the forest itself was observing them. They remained alert as adrenaline and fear mingled. They were pushed past their physical limits by the strong desire to demonstrate Bigfoot's existence. Their weary bodies were kept going by the prospect of making a life-changing discovery. However, they came to the unsettling knowledge that they weren't alone, just as the tension was at its highest. The group thought back on the trip as they approached the forest edge and made their way back toward civilization. It had evolved into a test of survival and endurance, rather than just a search for Bigfoot. They had learned patience, determination, and respect for the wild from the forest. Even though they had overcome their concerns and become stronger, they were aware that there was still an oddity in those woods. Then, again out of the corner of their eyes, they noticed a shadow flashing through the bushes. It left a lasting impact, yet frustrated them with its elusiveness because it moved too fast to be recognized.
Got it. I have your coordinates. I'll meet you out there.
We're gonna start making our way up, and Bryce can meet up with us. He has our position.
Uncertain if they had miscalculated the creature's nearby areas, the squad hesitated. Their determination to find the truth kept them moving forward, despite the uncertainty that clouded their judgment. Every sound in the distance seemed like a hint of something hiding just out of sight, and every shadow seemed to conceal a secret. The forest grew darker and more frightening the farther they went. The limbs of the trees seemed to reach out like twisted hands, closing in on them. The forest's previously faint noises became more audible, sending shivers down their spines with every rustling leaf and shattering twig. They knew there was no going back, even though their sense of dread grew. The terror that overcame them simply made them more determined. They had to keep going, farther into the unknown, where each step brought them one step closer to whatever truth was concealed in the shadows, if they sought answers. What other secrets about the natural world might we be unaware of? And how would that affect our comprehension of the animals that inhabit our planet? Uncovering the mysteries that lie in the shadows of our woodlands might only be the first step in the quest for truth. For more interesting videos about Bigfoot, make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow for more.